My name is Wayne Good. My job is to get things kicked off here for starters. We appreciate all of you being here. This is a very important function that the Board of Curators is undertaking, and we certainly want as much public input as we can get, and we're doing that in a couple of different ways. Before I go any further, let me introduce several of my colleagues that are here, staff and so forth, who you will hear from later, and they won't be speaking at this moment. But joining me at the table is my fellow curator, Don Downing. Chancellor Tom Charge is in the front row here. Betsy Rodriguez, University System Vice President, is here in the front row. And Cindy Harmon, Secretary of the Board, is always busy somewhere. I see her over there in the corner. We also have with us an advisory committee to the Board of Curators that are very much involved in the search. Thank you all for being here, for participating in the overall task, and again, we really do appreciate that. As I'm sure everyone's aware, our president for the last 3 years, Gary Forsey, resigned a little after the beginning of this year due to serious health problems of his wife and his obligations to be involved in that, which he felt severely would limit his ability to go forth with his position as president of the university, and he first took a leave of absence and then decided it was best to resign. Gary was really, I think, getting the things he wanted to accomplish done, and he had a good 3 years. The changes he made in the administration, or the administration of, I should say, the university, were significant. Many were not seen out in front, but there was no doubt that he was a good administrator and a good manager, one that was very much appreciated. And I'm sure that this situation was very tough decision to make. I know his heart was and still is with the university. So we have a big task to do to fill that job. It's probably the most important task that falls to the Board of Curators, and it certainly involves everyone within the university system and essentially all Missourians. So thank you again. I'm going to ask Don to come up and say a few words, and then we're going to get into the program.
Thank you, Wayne. I just want to reiterate a couple of things that Wayne said. We are very focused on how important this task is. Every member of the Board of Curators, every member of the search committees, the advisory committees, this is something that's, as Wayne said, I think one of the most important things, if not the most important thing, that the board will do over the next several years. So I want to assure you that it has our entire focus. We will be having numerous meetings over the next several months, and we are very focused on this. And today, we would very much appreciate from hearing from any or all of you your thoughts on qualities that you think would be helpful to have in a new president. I think Gary Forsey set a pretty good mold, but there are other molds out there. And we're very open-minded. We don't come into this, none of us come into this with a preset disposition on we have to have somebody from this background or anything like that. So we're very open. We'd love to hear your comments today. Before we get to that, though, I would like to put into context how big this job is and how important this job is. let me talk a little bit about the statewide reach of the University of Missouri system. And I'm going to go through some facts and figures with you, and I'll point out what some of those dots mean on the board. We have, to start off with, the University of Missouri has a mission as the state's sole land-grant public research university to discover, disseminate, and preserve and apply knowledge. The radius of this impact is tremendous. And again, to go through some of these facts and figures, we have 4 campuses where we educate 45% of all undergraduate students at public four-year institutions in the state, 64% of the state's graduate students, and the overwhelming majority of professional school students. And obviously those campuses are represented by the yellow dots on the map. We also have 22 agricultural experiment stations where research in agriculture, forestry, animal science, and natural resources has benefited Missourians since 1888. Those agricultural experiment stations are represented by the green dots on the map. We also have more than 30 small business and technology development centers staffed by business development professionals who help create or retain tens of thousands of jobs for Missourians, which are represented by the light purple dots. We also have extension centers in nearly all of the state's 114 counties that provide a wide range of educational programs, including agriculture, nutrition, health, youth development programs like 4-H, and continuing education. Those are represented by the orange dots. We also have a telehealth network that delivers health care to patients at 200 endpoints in 55 Missouri counties, ensuring the health of all of our citizens by providing top-quality medical care at the lowest possible cost, regardless of where they live, represented by the blue dots. And finally, the conduit for internet connectivity, technical support, and video conferencing services across the state through one of the nation's first educational telecom networks, the Missouri Research and Educational Network, or MORENET. MORENET links Missouri K-12 schools, college, universities, 319 public libraries, healthcare system, and state government. And those are represented by 931 dots. I think there are 931 there. I didn't count them all. So just to give you some sense of the magnitude of this job that we're searching for the perfect candidate for, it's a big system, big responsibilities, and we welcome your help in any way you can give it. Without saying anything further, I'll turn it over to Chancellor Tom George.
Well, thank you very much, Curator Good and Curator Downing. What I would like to do is give you a sense of some of the operational aspects of the President of the University of Missouri system. And you might, even if you can't see everything that's on this, the table's blocking a bit, let me just go through what we call a flow chart of largely what reports to the President of the University of Missouri system. Let me also add to our curators that we are definitely interested in feedback, not just from people that are in this room now, but from people later. I'm certainly welcoming people of the search committee, and the advisory committee will certainly welcome comments by email, phone, in person. And it's actually a two-way street. What we're doing now, before we get your comments, is going in your direction with information, and then what's really critical is getting information from the campus and from the greater community. The Board of Curators are appointed by the governor. There's 10. There's a student representative and 9 curators. One at the moment representing every congressional district. We'll be sorting through that within the state shortly as we go to 8. And there's a majority of 5-4, Republican, Democrat, or Democrat-Republican statutorily. Reporting to the Board of Curators is the General Counsel. And those are the offices that handle all of the legal aspects. And currently, actually, the General Counsel is serving as the interim president, Steve Owens. While it reports directly to the Board of Curators, I think it's probably fair to say that the General Counsel interacts as much with the president of the University of Missouri system, the chancellors, and others. So it is a reporting relationship just to the board, but General Counsel is involved in the whole system. And, of course, the secretary to the board. Then reporting to the president most immediately is a chief of staff and an associate vice president for strategic communications, marketing, getting the word out, and making sure that we're telling the correct story for University of Missouri system. There are 4 campuses, as we've heard. The system was formed in 1963. This one right here is the baby. I mean, I still like to think of us as a teenager in the system. We're still growing and starting to flex our muscles. But we were formed in 1963. 2 campuses already existed, S&T, a school of mines, and then also the original flagship land-grant university at Mizzou. And then University of Missouri, Kansas City, a private university, a collection of private schools. Anyway, all brought together into what's now a fantastic system. We have the chancellor at Mizzou or MU. We have the chancellor at UMKC, the chancellor at Missouri, S&T. It used to be University of Missouri-Rolla, then got changed to S&T for reasons which make total sense to me. And then here at the University of Missouri, St. Louis. So four outstanding campuses. And then we have a team. We're all called general officers, vice presidents and chancellors that report to the president, but there's a team located in Columbia, largely at University Hall, and this includes Missouri University Healthcare Advisory Board, and that currently is chaired by the president of the system. The senior associate vice president for academic affairs. There was a senior vice president for academic affairs. That person left to get a chancellorship in Minnesota, and at this point it's remained as an associate vice presidency. Senior associate vice president for research and economic development, vice president for information technology, vice president for business and or for finance and administration, vice president for human resources, which is Bessie Rodriguez, and she's here now, and then vice president for government relations. And I must say that we work with all of those offices here on the campus. And I'm now in my 8th year, and I must say this is probably as tight a working group as I've seen among the chancellors, among the all the general officers, the vice presidents, and the board of curators. So, the new president of the University of Missouri system is not coming into a problem. The University of Missouri system is going to come into something that's thriving, something that's very exciting, something that is providing the absolute best in higher education for our students and is serving all the regions of this state and beyond. So this is a really exciting opportunity for just that right individual. And I'll echo what Curator Downing said, is I think the search committee, which is the board of curators, is open to just getting the very best person. And I can also speak, I think, for the advisory board as well, advisory committee. There's one person from St. Louis who's not here. That's Rick Rosenfeld. He's a professor of criminology or criminal justice. He's out of town, but that's one more person from the St. Louis region that's on that. I guess we'll go to one more slide for me. Now, you might say, what kind of characteristics do we want in the president of University of Missouri system? And let me start off by saying this is a draft slide. It's not a slide in stone. It's simply just to get ideas going, and then the 2 committees are going to be working on this as it gets fine-honed, and ultimately with the search firm, when the external search firm gets identified. But 1, understand the university's unique role and mission and advocate for continual improvement in all 4 mission areas: teaching, research, service, and economic development. Back when I arrived in 2003, we actually had 3 legs to a 3-legged stool, which was research, teaching, and service. And then at that time, University of Missouri System President Elson Floyd added a 4th dimension or a 4th leg to that stool. So now, and we've continued to embrace that, and so that we now have economic development as well. And certainly this campus is as involved as anyone in economic development. Leverage the institution to advance the state. We are the public research land-grant university. That's part of that's our responsibility to advance the state. Tirelessly champion public higher education. And President Forsey did this extremely well, and so it's not just the University of Missouri system, but it's all of public higher education and ultimately higher education. We interact right here in the St. Louis region with as many private universities as we do with public universities. We're all, if you will, in this together. Create and sustain a culture that focuses on performance and results. Again, a series of processes that President Forsey did put into place. Accountability. Every accreditation agency now that looks at universities are looking at accountability measures. We have these in place, and certainly we want the new president to re-examine those and make sure we have those kinds of aspects in place. Be an effective and compelling communicator. And communication these days comes in many forms, certainly standing in front of a group and speaking, but also writing, verbal, electronic, Facebook, Twitter, whatever all the combinations of communication are. Cultivate relationships with multiple constituencies. I think probably the University of Missouri system has more interactions and partnerships than any other entity I can think of in the state. Whether it's with the private sector and industry, private individuals, state agencies, and it's not just in the state of Missouri, it's throughout the country and the world. It's a complicated mosaic of interactions, and we do it extremely well at the University of Missouri, as well as anyone. Lead with vision. And certainly we have mission and vision statements now, but certainly when a new president or a new chancellor comes in, they look again at what the campus or what the system is doing and re-examine what that vision is and then lead with that vision. Have business acumen. Clearly, President Forsey had that, and I can't think now of any presidency or chancellorship where you don't have to have business acumen. I mean, you're running an enterprise. I mean, a university is a complicated enterprise, and finances and success of all of your constituencies, and I use the word loosely clients, but to those are your students and all that, that's very important. Demonstrate the ability to manage a complex and diverse organization, and nothing's more complicated than University of Missouri system. I mean, we're talking about 65,000 students, and we're talking about a state budget alone of $430 million, but overall $2 billion, just when you look at all the expenses that get involved. Be a strategic thinker, and that couples with also leading with vision, and still an atmosphere that reflects strong, positive values and integrity. And we certainly want the highest integrity in our leader. Assemble and empower an excellent team of proven leaders and be able to work with a diverse board of curators. And so the leaders are the immediate team, the chancellors and the vice presidents, and of course the board to whom the president reports. And as Curator Downing said, probably one of the most important, if not the most important task that the board does is identifying and appointing and nurturing the president of the University of Missouri system. And then balance work and personal life. For that little bit of time you have left for your personal life, get that balance. If you're in a position like this, the bulk of your time, personal and business, all intermingle, and you shouldn't be in the position if you don't like it. And certainly we've had great leaders in the past, and I know we're going to get another great leader. So with that, I'm going to hand this over to Betsy Rodriguez, who's our Vice President for Human Resources, to go through some of the mechanics of the search process. So Betsy.
Thank you, Tom. I'll do this quickly, and welcome to all of you. I've heard a few people describe that list that was just up as somewhere between God and Superman or Superwoman, so I'm sure you'll have things to add to that as well. Let me give you a quick picture of what we've done so far. In January, the Board of Curators established itself as the search committee, including the student representative. And then shortly after that, and they met last Friday for the first time, the search advisory committee met, and you've met some of those folks here on the front row today. There are 20 people on that committee. And then also in February, the board selected a search consultant, and that search consultant is Greenwood, Asher and Associates. And the two women who own that firm, Jan Greenwood and Betty Asher, will be personally serving as our search consultants. They have a wonderful track record of attracting high-quality, diverse candidates to pools like this, and we're very excited to have them on board. And then, of course, beginning now, we're in the middle of doing these public forums. So what's coming up next? Well, the search committee will continue to meet, and so will the advisory committee, and that all leads up to March 22nd. And the goal is at the March 22nd board meeting to finalize that list that you saw earlier that Tom went through with you. Finalize that, what exactly are we looking for, and to formally post the job. And that would occur sometime in late March. And then all bets are off at that point. It's very hard to know what the schedule's going to look like because you have to see who ends up in the pool and when. And so hopefully at that point we'll be starting to look through candidates and potentially even doing some interviewing. And I think it would be very interesting if you would mark this on your computers. We actually are following an awful lot of this through a presidential search site. And this is on the web, and you can follow just about everything that we're doing. We've posted all the documents so far, including the slides that you saw today. Those are posted on the website. I don't know, including the draft statements, there's going to be a link eventually to our search consultant. So if you want to nominate somebody for the position or you know somebody who would like to nominate themselves, you'll have the link to do that. So I encourage you to follow us on that. And with that, I'm going to put this slide back up, which is the list of qualities, but you certainly don't have to follow this at all. And we'll open it up, and I'll have Tom, you want to come join us up here, and we'll listen to what you have to say, or if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer questions. Who wants to start?
Okay. My name is Kathleen Sullivan Brown, and I'm an associate professor here at UMSL, and I thought I'd start it off. I work in the College of Education in the Education, Leadership, and Policy Studies area. And when you say understand the university and its mission, I assume you're talking about the University of Missouri system, but I think it's important that the new president also understand the role of universities in the nation and in terms of metropolitan economic development. I think President Forsey did a great job, and I appreciate the business acumen, as you said, that he came in with. But I think there was also a big learning curve for him, and I really think that it's important for us to have somebody who understands the pressure that especially public research universities are under in our country, the challenges to show results in performance, some of the debates about what universities should do and how well they are actually turning out graduates and the skills that they're turning out those graduates with. So I would urge, while you are looking for somebody with business skills and a business history, I think that is important with the finances and so forth. But I think understanding the historical role of universities in our country as they have developed over the past couple hundred years, I think is a really key ingredient for this person.
Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Deborah Burris, and I serve as the Director of the Office of Equal Opportunity and Chief Diversity Officer. And so, as you would expect, as implied in my title, I'm concerned about diversity. And I guess I also want to kind of look, to me, when we talk about diversity and we have a search process in place, it is important that the members and the people who participate in that process, ergo the various committees and so forth, be diverse as well. Because again, I realize that we have a search firm that we've hired who will, I'm sure you've given them the charge to build a diverse pool. But in building that diverse pool, frequently you may be successful at maybe getting someone's attention concerning the position, but if they don't see diversity even in the search pool or the search committees or those committees that those candidates will engage and interact with, that sends a message to me about our university. And so I just want to just put that out there again to publicly state that we need to be diverse in every aspect of this process, in terms of the committee, in terms of the individuals that we try to reach out to get them to apply for the position and consider the position. So that's first and foremost, because again, individuals look at the top of the organization and they form their impressions about that community based on what they see. The second thing I also want to stress that as we look at candidates, I hope that we, and again, all of you have probably had a lot of experience in this, but look at the track record. Oftentimes when we have candidates come in, they, of course, talk about how they're committed to diversity and they believe in diversity. But I would encourage you to look a little deeper in terms of being very specific. What have they done at their current organizations to advance diversity, to put some action behind that commitment or that philosophy? So I would encourage you to please do that and consider that in your search process. I noticed in the list of characteristics that you're looking for, there's a list of dealing with diverse board members, dealing with diverse community. Again, I would encourage you to look at that broader than just, folks from the rural community, from the urban areas, traditional students, non-traditional students, but look also at their track record in terms of cultural diversity. But the last thing I wanted to ask as well, an individual who's accustomed or who has a track record of dealing with diverse communities, because as you showed in that state of Missouri, and again, we deal with our university, as awesome as we are, we serve a very diverse state of Missouri and beyond that in terms of our international stretch. And so we must have individuals at the table who truly understand that community that we serve. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Joan Bray, and for 18 years I had the privilege and the pain of voting on appropriations for the university system. It was never enough money, so I know that's going to be a challenge to whoever comes into this job in the coming years. But there's just a few things I want to mention from my perspective as a legislator over the years with regard to the administration of the university. I think it's terrific that President Forsey was in a position to sort of do things administratively and business-wise to probably straighten out some things that needed that for a long time. I do think it's critical that the next president have a strong academic background, strong academic credentials, preferably having been a faculty member somewhere. I believe so strong in the academy part of a university system that I think that Missouri deserves to have someone who can lead among across the country in terms of the academic standing and the academic leadership of the university. A couple of things, historically, the university system in its land grant position has been throughout the state and largely with that, agricultural activities. And I think that's important to keep that, but I think there's two aspects, both the MoreNet network, which reached out into the public libraries and public schools across the state, needs to be maintained and strengthened and enriched, and the telehealth aspect of not just being a technology, but a true service to the residents of Missouri in the challenges of healthcare in the future. And I think that those business aspects of the university can be maintained by making sure that wise people are in those business and those technology positions where someone of the kind of academic and leadership and visionary credentials that I'm envisioning may not have those specifics, but making sure people in those positions do have them, and as a team that the university can lead in those kinds of ways as well. Thank you.
I'm Betty Van and I do public affairs and economic development at the university, and I appreciate everything all the previous speakers have said. I would like to emphasize that I think that the new president has to have, as well as business acumen, political acumen, because at the end of the day, we are a political institution. After all, land grant wouldn't have existed if the southern states hadn't, quit, and they finally were able to get the thing passed. So somebody has to be understanding of how the political process works and have demonstrated that in order to lead us in obviously changing political times. So I think that political acumen would be respected by both sides of the aisles, having some experience working in the public sector and understanding that aspect. Thank you.
I'm Joe Martinich. I'm professor in College of Business and gadfly, I guess, for the system. One of the characteristics I didn't see listed was that the new president, in my opinion, should have a true belief in and a commitment to faculty and staff involvement in decision making. That we have this great human resource that we serve the state with, and the university needs to take advantage of that itself. I think there are models that existed. I think IFC has been very helpful over the years. I think the Special Advisory Committee on the Pension Fund has been a model of using the resources, the institutional history of faculty and staff, and I'd like to see a president that, and we've had them in the past, who really believe in that and are committed to it.
I'm Keith Womer, and I have the pleasure of serving as Dean of the College of Business here. 3 years ago, when we went through this process, maybe a bit more, the search firm was with us and talked a bit about their past experience. And Betsy told us something about the experience, or the fact that there was great experience by Greenwood and Asher. And I'd like to ask, what has been the results of the last few presidential searches that the search firm has been involved with?
Gosh, they've done so many. So you want to know the type of individual that has been selected? Yeah. They have selected a really interesting variety, from non-traditional to traditional academics. They recently did the search. I'm going to do a little of this off the top of my head. I'm going to try to remember. If you all remember any more from their interview, jump in. They did University of Massachusetts recently, which was a non-traditional hire for them. They're in the process of doing University of Kentucky, which is not a system position, but a large campus. They've done a number of positions in Texas. And I would say overall, mostly they put academics into those kinds of, in the long run, academics are selected, but they've certainly done some non-traditionalists as well. They have a very good track record in diversity of placing both women and minorities in high-level positions, both president and chancellor level positions. And one of the reasons that we selected them is that they have they build a really strong relationship with the university, and something like 97% of their businesses are repeat clients. So people, after they fill the top level position, often ask them to come back and fill other positions that are vacant on that team. And they do a very good job of pulling teams together, so that was pretty attractive to the board. Do you all want to add anything else from the interview?
We spent quite a bit of time interviewing the top few firms, and I think what Betsy said is right. I think for me, and I think for several of the board members, the fact that 97% of their customers are repeat customers was very telling to us, as well as the diversity of their placements and the longevity of their organization. Betsy, you can refresh me on this, but 20 years plus they've been doing this very successfully.
And they both served as both presidents and chancellors, albeit in smaller institutions, but both Betty Asher and Jan Greenwood have held. One's an ED, one has a PhD, higher ed PhD, and one has a more traditional PhD, and both have led institutions as presidents or chancellors.
I'm Larry Frederick. I'm the Chief Information Officer for UMSL here, and I'd like to see a president that has some sense of the context of the university and higher education. Information technology is changing the world rapidly. It's changing higher education and changing almost every industry we know. So it's important to have a sense of where information technology is taking the world and the university. Distance is being destroyed. More and more students are immersed in information technology. So it's a different world, certainly a different world from when I grew up, and I'd like to see someone who can take the next step and see where the world is going in that regard. Thank you.
I might pose a question if you want to think about this. If the search consultant were sitting here, what would you want her to hear about the UMSL campus that might be unique and for her to consider as she talks to candidates? And you can answer other questions as well.
I have to say it. UMSL's underfunded. All the formulas say so. And when we agreed on a number a few years ago, it was about less than half of what the number really was. So I want them to know that, and just, might as well get the fairness straightened out straight away.
Now, to President Forsey's credit, he recognized that. It went on to the budget request for the Board of Curators for the last several years, started with Gordon Lamb, and we didn't have to sneak behind the doors late at the 11th hour to get adjustments, and so we still have one more adjustment to go. And Wayne Good helped us get the first one. You helped us get one as well, of course, Senator.
Hello, my name's Jerry Peterson, and I have an opportunity to work with some students here on campus, and I hope that the new president, with all of the other wonderful things he has to juggle, actually gets to meet the students at all the different campuses. So that usually helps energize people So I know this is going to be a daunting task for whoever it is. When he gets to meet the students, hopefully that'll help him keep on pushing for all of us.
I would like to build on what Chancellor George said about us being a teenager in the higher education world. So I would like the new president to understand the developing nature of our campus and why it needs to develop, because St. Louis is the economic engine of the state. What happens in St. Louis depends an awful lot on what kind of graduates we produce. Historically, that was not true 40 years ago. St. Louis University and Washington University produced our workforce. That is no longer the case. We produce the workforce. So unless we have a diversity of program, a diversity of opportunity, and very high standards here, the metropolitan area suffers greatly. So I'd like to have that understanding of our emergence be front and center in the new president's mind.
I noticed in the St. Louis Business Journal, this most recent issue, they listed in order the number of alums from each of the institutions of higher education in the state of Missouri. And I noted that UMSL was far and away had more alums in the St. Louis area than any other institution, public or private.
Almost 60,000 are in this area now, and it goes beyond that. You can go to major organizations or companies and you say, who's the feeder, the largest feeder of your employees? It's University of Missouri St. Louis, and it's all up the whole ladder. I mean, we have CEOs. I mean, George Paz right on here on campus, Warner Baxter, the list goes on. So, I mean, we really do supply the workforce.
I think most of the people who work in the public sector, especially public higher education in the state, feel somewhat beaten down from the last several years of the economy and lack of funding and so on. And so I think a characteristic that will be important is that the president will have to be an inspirational leader. I really think they could be the best manager in the world, but I think that there is a demoralization. Even though I think we've got a fantastic chancellor, there's only so much he can do. And the new president's going to be coming into a difficult job in terms of getting people fired up again the way they were 5, 10, 15 years ago, and feel that there really is a future for higher education in the state.
If you think you have the perfect candidate in mind, you can either nominate today from the floor, or probably better, let us know. You can go to the website and nominate. But seriously, we're looking. We don't want to just sit back and wait for candidates to come to us. We want to search and find the best possible candidates in the country and have an opportunity to interview them. So don't be bashful. We want to hear from you. We want to hear who you think would be the perfect candidate, or if not the perfect candidate, the best candidate we could find.
I would emphasize that while we're in some respects well on our way, we're just getting started from the standpoint of considering candidates. And as the president of the board mentioned the other day, we are not in any big hurry. We have an interim a president that knows what needs to be done, short run, and so the university is being well run. We're not in a rush, but on the other hand, it's something we do want to get done in a timely manner. So continue to give us your input. This is the second of 9 meetings being held around the state. The advisory group has had their first meeting. They're going to continue to meet and advise us. And the purpose of all of this is to uncover good candidates from which we can make, hopefully, a good choice and end up with a good result. So that's kind of where we are and what we have in front of us. So continue to let us know what you think.
I think we'll stick around for a few minutes if people want to do one-on-one conversations.
Thank you all for coming today.
Thank you all.
Thank you.